Okay, this video is all about Raptor 2. What's going on? Update for our loyal paying customers who are waiting patiently. I think it's important that everyone really understands what's going on. So for those of you who don't know, last week and the week before I was in China. I got back on the 18th and the last few days I've just was sick, a bit sick actually, China belly, and just getting back on top of things. But I think it's time I did a full update and really go into detail about what happened over there. I've been to China a few times. I've honestly been a bit disappointed because I went, the first time I went to China on this project was just, doing some groundwork, seeing suppliers, doing all that stuff. The second time I went there with the intention to build boards and ship. And I was let down, but that was mostly due to my inexperience. I didn't really understand how much work was involved setting up our own factories. Those of you who don't know, we literally built our own assembly line, everything from the ground up. So we're not using someone else. We control this completely. Our staff, our people are there. We had to do everything, okay? So there's a lot of work there. I didn't anticipate that. The other thing I didn't anticipate was just when you try to put lots of parts together that are made by all these different factories that you contract, and they make a part, and some of them are sub-assemblies, some of them are just single parts, and it all has to come together, and you've got to build something. The tolerance control is a nightmare. When you're building something in your garage, right? You can, if there's a part that's a little bit like 0.5 millimeter too long or something, you can get a file out and you can adjust it. Or if the screw's too long, if you had to, you can make adjustments. You can do things on the fly. You can use craftsmanship to solve problems, and that's cool, man. I mean, I like that. I've done that. I enjoy that kind of work. That's how I started this business. But that is not how you mass produce a product. And in fact, it is very detrimental. And what it actually means is a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted money, a lot of unusable parts, and basically completely inefficient. So the first time we were there, we discovered heaps of those problems, and we couldn't really do anything in terms of production. What we did do, though, is solve a lot of problems, identify a lot of areas that needed to be improved, built relationships with all these key suppliers, and really set the foundation, I suppose, is what ended up happening on that first trip. Then obviously disappointed. And okay, this is an important point. That first trip, we didn't have boxes either. Now this box problem, let me go into detail about this box problem. I'm not bad at designing electric skateboards, and I mean, I could probably design a box as well. But what we did is we contracted a box designer. Crazy, right? To design a box for this product. And they did design a box, and we sent it away to get samples, and it was really surprisingly very complex, because when you build a box, I better get my graphics back up there. When you build a box, a few things need to happen. All of the parts need to be folded and brought together, and you need a strong structure. The first design that we had wasn't really good and it needed to be adjusted. And same with designing anything. Sometimes things the first time when you go to make it, you realize, oh, that's stupid. Let's make it a change to a change to the design. So we did that, and then this sort of went back and forth for a few weeks. Couldn't make it properly, make an adjustment. Samples, blah, blah, blah. That took way longer than expected. And then finally we sort of agreed, yep, this is a good one. Let's go ahead with it. You know, it wasn't 100% perfect, but it was going to do. And then when we were in China, we were expecting all these boxes to be there ready, and it just basically didn't happen. The quality of the materials that we were seeing in the first samples from this factory that we're going to use were just not good enough. I mean, the structure of the material was weak, too soft, basically. So, I mean, I think we ended up getting 20 boxes or something, because I'm like, we just need these, because we're going to have, you know, the plan was to ship 20 Raptors out. I think we ended up only getting 14 out with these boxes. But as it turned out, that design got scrapped, that supply got scrapped, and we started again. It took more time than expected between our last trip to China and my recent one. And the box was redesigned, the design was good. We realized we could make it a little bit smaller to reduce the volume, and we could reinforce certain areas. So we did all the stuff that we thought would be good. And one of the problems, this is ridiculous, but I wanted printing on the inside and the outside. Turns out that the new factory that we chose that had the right materials and could do what we wanted, couldn't print both sides. And I mean, we needed that. I wanted graphics on the outside, Raptor 2, you know, make it look nice. And I wanted instructions on the inside, like a starting guide and all the stuff people need to know. Because people don't flip through books, right? You put all the information, the important stuff, right in front of them. They couldn't do that. So then we had to find another factory. And then they could do it, but then they couldn't make the panels in the right size. They had to join panels together, which happened with the first factory. And I saw the quality of that, and it wasn't strong enough. So I was adamant that no, we cannot accept that. So anyway, we had to keep looking for suppliers, and the weeks rolled by. We did find one that said that they could do the printing both sides. They still had to use separate panels, and there still had to be a join, but they made a sample. They showed us where the join would be, and it was a strong join, and it wasn't going to impact the quality. So we said, great, let's get samples. They said it would take 2 days. It took 10 days. So the sample was meant to be in China at my last trip, and they said it was going to take 7 days to produce the product, to, you know, produce, we ordered 1,000 of them. They're very expensive, by the way, which is another thing that I was annoyed about. But anyway, and yeah, so the sample didn't arrive when I was in China until a few days before leaving. And then the sample that I got, the graphics that I designed for it, text had been cut off. There were a few things that weren't right. The thickness of the cardboard that we thought we were going to get wasn't used on this internal part. There was confusion about that. In the end, we said, look, let's just go to this factory and sort out all these problems. And you know what? We probably should have done that with this new factory much sooner. The box was a complete nightmare. And anyway, we worked all this stuff out, and they tell us that due to some environmental regulations in China, the factories that produce the raw material, so just the non-printed cardboard, there's a lot of pressure on them now to improve their processes, right? So that it's not an environmental impact, the way they process the raw materials. What that's meant has a lot of the small players, the sort of the backyard factories, they're not backyard, but they're small, closed down. So the raw material suppliers are under lots of pressure by the government in China to improve the environment. What that means is the cost has gone up, the supply or the lead times has stretched out because the small guys aren't around anymore. And anyway, our supplier, the one that's going to do the printing and make the actual box, tells us 15 days to make these boxes now. And that was like 2 days before I was about to leave China. So absolute nightmare. I think we may have been able to do it quicker. We just never expected it to be so complicated. So it was it wasn't a priority. We always put so much focus on the motors and the electronics and the battery and the deck and the CNCing of parts and all of these other very, very important things. And the box sort of was just like, yeah, it's a box, right? We'll get it. As it turned out, we didn't get it. What else happened? So the injection molding factory that makes the battery case, we rejected a lot of the earlier ones because there was weird white marks on it, and some of them felt brittle, and we weren't particularly happy with how some of the parts were. So a lot of rejected parts from that factory early. So we went there to see the changes, the improvements, and some of the key things that they were going to do to improve it were not done. They were meant to be done. It was all meant to be done. And pretty much every time you make a change to an injection mold, even the slightest change, I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of an injection mold. These massive blocks of steel that are lifted by cranes. There's two separate parts with all these connecting pins, and it's a high precision part. So there's all these processes that go involved into handling it. A lot of the changes, sometimes it has to be sent outside. For instance, the texture on plastic, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but plastics have a texture on it. So that is generally done by a third party that take the mold and treat it. So anyway, 12 days is what they told us. So in the end, that didn't matter because the boxes were delayed anyway. What else happened? Yeah, I was sick for most of the trip, which wasn't fun. The good news is, between this trip and the one just before it, what has been a huge improvement is all of our processes. So our production line, our team that is focusing on making it all happen. So not the manufacturers, the people who are there and looking at the parts, handling the parts, assembling the parts, making sure all of my procedures are met. There's been a huge improvement there. Last time we were in China, before the recent trip, none of this stuff was in place, and it took time to set up. But I'm pretty confident now that the team that is there is really experienced. They certainly taught me a lesson or two about how to do this. So yeah, overall, I would rate my 2 trips to China as mostly fails, but they're failures that had to happen. They're you can't just win all the time. You got to lose a little bit, and I think we learned a lot of things that, well, I certainly did anyway, that I didn't know. It makes me better at this manufacturing game now, and yeah, makes better products. That's basically what it's about. I mean, we could accept lower quality. We could just sort of turn our backs to some problems that, I mean, honestly, some of them probably wouldn't even matter. But that's not the approach we're taking here. Because as soon as you do that, as soon as you accept inferior results, it sets a precedence. And that means that factory knows they can get away with certain things, and then they try to do another little dodgy thing or whatever, and you know, it sets a bad tone. So you've got to be really strict. You've got to set all these strict guidelines and processes, and you've got to reject parts over and over and over again until everything is perfect. And that is extremely draining, extremely annoying, extremely painful process that I don't particularly want to go through again anytime soon, but that's how it is. And the good thing is, most of our customers are fairly patient. Most people understand that we're trying to just make the best product, and we're on schedule now. And I've been saying things like we're on schedule and we're going to ship. You need to realize these are always estimates and anything can happen, like the box fiasco. But anyway, when the boxes arrive, I think it's about 10 days away now, we should have 150 units that are basically perfect. They pass all of the procedures that we've set in place. They've been tested, cleaned, bagged, put in a box, and get shipped to our customers. So it's going to be good. I'm not sure if I'll have a lot of updates to give over the next 10 days. If something drastically bad happens, yes, I'll tell you. If there are more delays, yes, I'll tell you. But at this point, I'm just going to sit back and let my team do what they do best. They are experts at it. They are far more experienced than I am, and I'm confident that they know what they have to do, and they're not going to deliver anything that's substandard, and that's all that matters. So tomorrow, Adelaide demo event. That's going to be good. Go and see some local people. Got to Raptor 2 basically pre-production versions. I've got to go into the shop and do some fine adjustments on them today, and yeah, it's going to be great. So hopefully that tells you everything. If there's any questions, write it below, and yeah, that's it. Catch you later. Bye.